solving in quadratic equations when c equals 0. There's no constant. In other words, we've just got this. There's no c. If we look at this, I've got x times x in there and x here. So I've got at least one x in both terms. So I can factorize. I can take x outside a bracket, leaving ax plus b inside. If you multiply this back out again, you get x times ax squared, because x times x gives x squared, and x times b gives bx. So we're back to this again. I can factorize it. The fact that this right-hand side is 0 now comes in really handy, because any number multiplied by 0 is 0, isn't it? It doesn't matter what that number is. If I multiply it by 0, the answer is 0. So if we look at this left-hand side, this x, if that x was 0, it wouldn't matter what the bracket was, the answer would be 0. So one solution is that x equals 0. And then the other solution is that the bracket is 0. If this bracket turned out to be 0, then it wouldn't matter what x was, the whole thing would be 0. So I've got two scenarios. Either x is 0 or the bracket is 0. And we use that idea to solve situations where c is 0. So let's look at an example. Let's say 3x squared minus 4x equals 0. So there's no constant. And I just made that up, but it should work, because it should work for any value of a and b. So the first thing I do is factorize, and this is always what you do. That means that x into what's left inside the bracket equals 0. And then you've got a situation where either x equals 0 or the bracket is 0. So we carry on. Left with 3x minus 4 equals 0. Multiply that back out to check you've done it right, and you see where that comes from. So now either x equals 0 or, and this is the useful one to us, 3x minus 4 equals 0. And I've got a little equation to solve. Add 4 to both sides. 3x equals 4. Divide both sides by 3. X equals 4 over 3. Done. Two possible answers, x equals 0 or 4 over 3. So this will always work. If I've got a situation where c equals 0, one of the values of x is always going to be 0. And if we look back at this and make c equal to 0, so if I put y equals 3x squared y equals 3x squared minus 4x, which is what we had, okay, we see that the curve always, one of the solutions is goes through 0, because if you think about it, if x is 0, looking at that equation, y is going to be 0, always. So it's always going to cut through the origin. One of my answers is always going to be 0, and then we're looking for, well, what's this one? And we just found out what that one is. It's 4 over 3, and you can see from the graph that's roughly 1/3, 4 over 3. So that's how you solve these things if c equals 0, straightforward.